Welcome in, everybody. Here we are to Kevin E. West, IG Live, over on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there. Tell your people, have them watch. This conversation today, on or about, what is it, April 8th or something? Yeah, April 8th, 2022-ish, is called Where is My Feedback? And that is a conversation that has been going on in this profession for decades. And unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to stop. And I don't think it's ever going to stop because most of our community from the time we're young, and even sometimes when we're older, hey, Mickey, we are sort of told, and it's in a lot of books, not in my book, but it's in a lot of books with regards to the word feedback. So, as it is with me, I'm going to always lay out in the front end of the what and the why of any IG Live or any conversation I have with my fellow community. I'm always going to lay out some philosophy and some psychology on you because it's a lot of what we deal with. So much of our result of our profession is just subjective, not objective. So I've learned in my life, hopefully you have as well, that yes, people change sometimes. Sometimes human beings evolve a little, but for the most part, things change. We improve, setting aside digital technology, just the most simple things evolve that are widgets or inanimate. Humans don't change that much. So, hey, Paul, the idea somewhere along the way, Guten Morgen, the idea somewhere along the way that somehow the idea of feedback has evolved into the 21st century, I personally would just probably say, no, it hasn't. And so you have to keep that in mind just to start out. But let's take the word feedback in our profession, because I commonly try to make sure that we align the business of show business as often as we can to save our brains with the rest of our lives, so we don't make the business part of this profession different from other shit in our lives, except when it truly is. And feedback is really just a form of validation for us and or confirmation for us. That's what feedback is. It doesn't matter whether you're getting feedback from your boss at a part-time job or whether you're getting feedback from your intimate partner or from friends. Feedback is just a form of you're on the right track or holy shit balls, you're not. That's all it is. So the concept of us needing or wanting feedback, we all want confirmation and validation in our lives. That's part of being a human being. When I first got into this profession, and I don't think this has changed 1 ounce, I don't. I knew from my days of trying to become a professional athlete or wanting to become one, I knew that I needed to get my own validation for what I was doing. And I didn't seek it out in a representative. I sought it out in what I thought was the most intelligent way to do it, which was how am I doing against the other people in the room? Again, remember, there's only one chapter in my book, one chapter that addresses the show part of show business. The rest of this is about business. There's one part that talks about the craft, which is called In the Room. It's kind of like the long parable, Man in the Arena. So when you're in the room, you're in the room. And I always felt like that was the only feedback I needed, was how am I being confirmed or validated from what happens in the room. Everything else is just bullshit. It's just colored bubbles. Getting to the room is why I do what I do with regards to the intelligence of pursuing your career. But once you're in the room, feedback to me is what comes out of that room. And so I did 14 student films when I first moved here. And back then, you really only had a couple of options. You had AFI in Los Angeles, wherever you are globally, whatever university system you may have available to you in the global place you're watching this from, be it Holland, or be it Paris, or be it anywhere else. There's some sort of student element of filmmaking or shooting things that you can go audition for that can help give you some feedback by definition of whether or not you get a callback or whether or not you booked the job. And so I simply sought out, knowing that I needed more on-camera, on-set experience. That's how I sought out the first concept of what people were calling feedback. And because union members, again, I'm speaking specifically to United States, because SAG-AFTRA members could go do student films, and we still can, or in today's world, because we have so many different contracts now that allow for smaller projects that you can do because you don't have maybe enough credits to be getting in for some other stuff, from the short project agreement we call SPA, to the ultra low budget contract, to all of the others, plus student films. Guys, you have a lot of options out there. Even if you're somewhat unsure, you have a lot of options of ways to go about finding out how you're doing on your own without reaching out to a representative such as Brett and asking about feedback. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And I just realized when I started getting callbacks on student films in which people who were my contemporaries, my age and union members, were also auditioning for, and I was getting callbacks 70% of the time, and I booked probably close to 45% of the ones I auditioned for back in the day, that told me, hey, you're perfect. No, hell no. I could be a way better actor than I even am today. But it did tell me that I was on the right track. It did tell me that I was doing something right in the room. And I'll also share this with you. Early into my working days, which kind of started in early 1990, I got an audition in 88. I have a Rain Man memory, so just excuse me on this. But this is an anecdotal true story going all the way back to General Hospital back in the day when Marvin Page was just still the casting director, and you would only know his name if you're old, like me, because then it became Mark Teschner. But I had an audition in 88, for a recurring role, 10-day job on General Hospital. Woo! Didn't get it. It was the fall of 88. January of 1990, so that's like 16 months, right? January of 1990, I just get a phone call from General Hospital. And I wanted feedback. I wanted feedback on, how'd I do with General Hospital in that job from my agent at the time? 16 months later, I get a phone call from General Hospital, and they just gave me a job. I didn't even have to audition for it. This is 16 months later. And at that moment, in time when I did that job, and then that was early 90, and then another year and a half later, I started recurring on the show for almost 10 months as Tim Reese. But that phone call, 16 months later from an audition I didn't get, was my confirmation that I had done a good job 16 months ago and just didn't know it. So, yeah. Yay, Alana. So just understand that that's going to be, these days, most commonly your form of feedback. But when it comes to the feedback conversation, guys, remember, everything I talk about is connected. I've already spent time on these IG Lives talking about the relationship you have with your representative. Oh my goodness, all the way from Dubai. Hey Lena, good to see you. So lovely to have you in. I hope you can follow my English. I talk kind of fast. But the first premise of feedback, like any relationship, you guys, when you have an agent or manager, you have to bring this up in your meeting with them. That's what you have to do. You have to ask somebody, hey, what is your stance? What is your position? How do you feel about getting feedback for your clients, known as us? That can't be something that's just rattling around in your head as a question mark that you don't know the answer to. This is one of my challenges with my fellow peers, and for today, that would be you guys, with regards to, if you want to know the answer to something, ask the question. So asking how your representative, when you're in the meeting, views feedback, this is not a matter of you saying to them, hey, you need to go get feedback every time. No, ask them, how do you handle that? What is your policy? What is your philosophy as an agent or manager? This is the same kind of respect that you would give to anyone about anything in life. So just ask the question. It's not about right or wrong, you guys. It's just about asking the question. I like actors to fill in as many blanks as they can about how something is going to be handled, how they're supposed to handle something, and how their representative would handle something. Because again, so much of this industry is subjective. And to believe that one industry person, like we used to have industry guests at the Actors Network, and Brett was one of them, okay, whether or not you want to believe because one manager or one agent or one casting director somewhere at some seminar said one thing, and you think that that policy or philosophy extends to every single other person in the industry, you're on crack. So I'm just telling you, yeah, there's probably a lot of similarities to it. Hey, kid, good to see you. Wow, we're international this morning, you guys, on a Friday. We got people from all over the globe. To believe that one answer, now it may be common, 60 or 70 or 80% may hold that belief. But on a subject like feedback, guys, just be careful. It is much more to an individual office, even though there's some standards, and it's much more to an individual person. So be careful about doing that to yourself, and also understand that there's a monster difference in the idea of feedback in the commercial industry versus the theatrical industry. I believe that 98.9% of commercial agents or managers who actually are really engaged in the commercial representation side for their clients, I think that 99% of casting directors, agents, and managers would tell you, don't ask for feedback on a commercial. The industry just moves too fast. It doesn't mean it never happens, but with all respect, getting multiple auditions from that person, from that casting office, for whatever reason, all the people at 200 South, which is one of the main casting places in Los Angeles, like me. I don't have any answer as to why, they just do. Whereas all of the rest of the commercial casting directors that surround Los Angeles, let's say maybe a legitimate 10 or 12 other people, sometimes they call me in, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I feel like a nut, sometimes I don't. Sorry, that's a commercial joke. But don't expect feedback from commercial auditions. Most of them will tell you, if you get callbacks, if you get, hey LJ, if you get book jobs, that is generally your feedback. Now, that's also going to be the case with smaller television. Back in the day, that, thanks, Rennie, sometimes I feel like a nut, sometimes I don't. So, in television, episodic features, whatever it may be, theatrically, most of the time, your feedback is likely to be whether or not they call you in for a callback and or call you in for other auditions. Multiple auditions with the same casting director equals feedback. And most representatives will tell you that. Now, I don't know after this pandemic how much we're ever going to go back to in-person auditions. I think commercially, we're probably going to come back about maybe 50%-ish. That's my guess. Theatrically, all respect to you guys, I don't think so. I think one of the keys about theatrical feedback is you can get it more often, ironically, which makes no sense, but the larger the role and the closer you are to getting it. Let me explain. If you go up for a guest star recurring, let's just use Walking Dead or use an old show like Breaking Bad or ER or anything that won a bunch of Emmys, any kind of highfalutin show, Lost. A lot of the shows that I was on, a lot of the shows in my resume were in the top 10 in television at the time that I booked them, just like Righteous Gemstones I just did. A lot of times, the bigger the role you go in for, if you start getting up to the recurring guest star or you're going in for series regulars, ironically, when you get close on getting there, they're probably down to only 3 or 4 or 5 tops people that they're actually considering for the job at that moment. And when you get to there, understand, your interest is piqued and your representative's interest is piqued. So because you're getting, that's actually more viable, in my opinion, if you don't wind up getting it, to get feedback. But you're probably getting feedback on why you didn't get it, not why we tend to want feedback, which is, how am I doing? Like, most of the feedback we want is like, how am I doing? Like, it's not the song from Chorus Line, God, I hope I get it. It's not that. So understand that that's a lot of times what you're going to wind up doing, because your representative even wants to know, if you didn't get it and you got right there on a really big role, what happened? Did you change ethnicity? Did you change gender? How come my client didn't get this? That's a common question. So now you brought it in there, Merrick, thank you very much. But what does it mean when you suddenly stop getting auditions from an office that you used to go in all the time and have booked with before? Well, let me do this, Merrick. First of all, that question renders what I would call a wrinkle to feedback. You're now seeking more of an answer of, let's say, current status rather than feedback, because if you've gone in multiple times for someone, and please know that once you're in this business long enough, in any city, in any place in the world, doesn't matter. Actors ask that same question in Sydney, Melbourne, Paris, London, anywhere. That question gets asked. And yes, Merrick, it has happened to me as well. And I'm going to try to explain it this way. I happen to go in, I've done Hawaii Five-0. I read for MacGyver before it ended. I've read for Magnum PI. I think Jennifer Cooper's office, as a general statement, likes me. And yet I haven't had an audition from them in quite a while. Also, ironically, since I just did the Righteous Gemstones and Bialy Thomas is a hard office to get into, I've read for them in my entire career 3 times. 3 times. I've booked 2 of them. Hello. 2 out of 3 on popular big shows. And yet, ask me if I've ever read for The Walking Dead. This face right here. Or Fear of Walking Dead. No. That's a different conversation than just baseline feedback. And that is one of those things where, to me, Merrick, that's when you do engage your representative and say, hey, is there any way you can find out what's going on with that office? Because that's a little different than feedback. That's a little more of what happened. Or, you know, did I break someone's China doll the last time I was in the office and I don't know it? That's much more that. But I will tell you this, and this is not an answer, Merrick, and there's not going to be an answer to this. There are times when, and I know we don't see it this way, I get it, that as much as we know an office likes us or an entity likes us, this business goes through trends. No matter what ethnicity, type, age, doesn't make any difference. There's just a time when they don't feel that you're right for something, or they may feel that they've seen you so much, they simply want to give other people a shot. The problem for us is, when that happens, the question you asked, Merrick, is, to us, 6 months is an eternity. I'm just getting older by the day, and I'm not reading for that office. What the is going on? I get it. To them, 6 months or a year goes by, they don't realize they haven't seen you. I have jokes with commercial casting director friends of mine. No joke. I'm not joking. There are a couple of good casting director friends of mine in commercial who haven't seen me in 5 years. And I know them well enough, and we're friendly enough that I'm able to say to someone when I see them socially, like, hey, did you just suddenly stop seeing white guys? What the hell happened? Like, I can joke with them about it. But time goes by for them in a different way than it goes by for us. So in those scenarios, Merrick, to answer the question, I can only tell you that's a little different than just straight feedback per the topic today on how am I doing. That's more of a status or a trend or a rhythm thing for you specifically to that office when you have what I would say credible, good history. That's different. Let's look at Alana's question real quick. Are you saying it's generally okay to ask for feedback through a rep if you were pinned or super close for like, yeah, that, and I think Alana, first of all, that's a really good question. And what I'm sharing with you is this. I'm sharing with you, Alana, that when it's a really good role, or it's something that would be recurring, or we know this is special, for lack of a better phrase, and I don't consider, just so you know, I don't consider every co-star or every even top of show guest star. Like I said, I just read for SWAT for the 5th time and didn't get it. And I know the showrunner and the executive producer. Holy shit balls. But I'm not going to ask them. See, here we go. Here's a line. Don't cross. I don't ask them, why didn't you hire me? And also, because I know them, I don't ask my manager to find out why they didn't hire me. Because they know me and they like me and I didn't get it. That means somewhere between the studio, somewhere between the network executives and some of the other producers, there was more of a conglomerate out of the 2 people I know that are way up here at the top that run the show. There was a consortium of people who just simply said, nah, we're going to go with so-and-so. They can't do shit about that. And I just want to keep being read for anything that they do. But in terms of what you're asking, Alana, yeah. If you were going up for a recurring on a half-hour sitcom, if you went in and read for a pilot and then you had a second read and then maybe even were going to test for a pilot, theatrical or half hour or hour, absolutely. If you were going up for, let's say, a 5th or 6th size role on the end title credit crawl of a major feature studio film that had a huge, or 1 or 2, usually it's 2, what, and why do I have a fruit fly flying? Sorry, I get distracted by things flying around my eyeball. What the hell was that? And you're going up for a supporting role in a major feature that has a De Niro or somebody, or Meryl Streep or something, and this is the kind of role that would give you visibility that could change your life and career, yeah. Then you would ask, but here's my point to you as we're closing in the last 5 minutes of the conversation today. Your representative is going to want to know too. This is the thing that we have to get used to as actors. This profession, especially television and especially commercials, is an assembly line. That doesn't diminish you as a person. It doesn't take down from you as a human being. But it's business every day. It's like, Eddie Murphy. I'm doing business. I'm making moves. This goes on. There's somebody's working every day. Somebody's booking every day. There's dozens and dozens and dozens and hundreds of auditions. And so all of that shit that's happening, that's just the rhythm and the idol of this profession, and it's normal. It falls into a bandwidth, as people like to use that word a lot. It falls into a bandwidth that is just part of a day that ends in Y. When you step outside that bandwidth into something that we would call rarefied air or upper echelon of a particular job, Alana, yeah, then I would want to say to my representative, hey, what do you think? And if I'm close enough, like I said, I just read for a lead in an NBC pilot. I'm not going to ask, anything about that. But if I got a second audition for it, or I got asked to go test, when that test was over, you bet your ass I would want to find out if I didn't get it, how I did. Absolutely. Again, it's the same thing. This is my point of why I started this conversation the way I started. Oh my goodness. Andrea, holy shit, Andrea, great to see you. I'm about 4 minutes away from wrapping up, but gosh, it's nice to have you in, and I hope you're well. Here's the other thing, and that's why I started this conversation off today with things change, people don't change much. So 3 decades ago, and please know I've gotten over this, I'm not bitter at all about it. if you don't know this about my history, I read for Reservoir Dogs twice. Not once, twice. And back in the day, that audition was at 20th Century Fox, and it was in a very small room with myself, the casting director, a reader, and Quentin Tarantino and Lawrence Bender sitting about 6 feet from me. Twice. That screenplay had just won at Sundance. This is the story. And they read a lot of the city in my category back then. They didn't read everybody twice. So when I went in for the second time, and this was through a buddy of mine at ICM, and I didn't get it, I didn't even have to ask for feedback because I read for it twice. Who got the job? Chris Penn, because his last name's Penn. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't like him better than me. I'm not saying that's why he got the job, but on a small independent feature where you're trying to get as many names as possible, whether it's Keitel or whether it's, Michael Madsen or whatever it may be. Tim Roth is the one person whose career got changed out of that movie severely. But my feedback when I found out that Sean's Penn brother had gotten the role, that's all the feedback I needed. I read for it twice. That was my feedback. Quentin Tarantino wanted to see me again. So just understand, guys, the inception point of this is, yes, we want to be validated. Yes, we want to get confirmation on how we're doing. I get it. You have to have this conversation with your representative early on and set the bar for whether or not this is going to be something that we do. And I have a funny feeling, Alana and Merrick and everybody who's weighed in on this conversation today, that most of the time, what they're liable to tell you of the circumstances in which they'll actually make the effort to reach out and find out are probably going to be some things that are either maybe your first couple of auditions because they want to find out themselves. If you're sort of a newer actor and you're just now reading for a line or two for the first time, think about it. If you were a representative, you might want to get feedback on your own client too. But once they feel comfortable with what you're doing in the room, and once that same office calls you back in, thanks, Merrick, yeah, whatever, once that office calls, the representative now can trust that you're not going to be a complete train wreck in the room. After that, probably 98 to 99% of the auditions you're ever going to have are just going to fall into that bandwidth area that the feedback is you either got it or you didn't. The feedback is, does the office call you back in again someday? That's going to be your feedback. And you can discuss it with your representative. But I still encourage, in the world we live in today, and I've already addressed this in a past Instagram Live, I highly encourage this whole community to become audition machines. Try to audition for as much as you can until you have a really solid resume. You don't have to take the job. Guess what's coming up next week? What's coming up next week on one of my IG Lives is how to say no. I do these in a specific order for a reason, y'all. So you don't have to accept a job just because someone wants to hire you. But utilizing all the projects out there as an audition platform for you to be really good at auditioning and also get callbacks and such and find out, hey, I must be at least on the right track aside from what happens in my acting class. That's how you use this industry and your profession to your advantage. It's how you do it. It's one of the mechanisms as opposed to trying to tap on a window or tap someone on the shoulder and bug them for feedback when chances are it may just become more of an aggravation than a resolution or solution. Okay? So we are right at 30 minutes. Y'all know I keep it together and keep it right inside that window. So thank you for being here. Everybody have an awesome weekend. Thanks for the questions, you guys. Appreciate it. And that is going to bring us to the close of where's my feedback? There you go, guys. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you very soon. All right. Peace. And have you done one on acting class versus the real world? Not yet, but I do. Way back in the day, America, I did create a topical discussion called addicted to class and addicted to theater. And I didn't mean it in a bad way, but it is that conversation. So that will come down the road at some point. Okay, that's the official end. I'm out. You guys have a great weekend. Bye.